So, do you know what hostile architecture is?
No, I do not.
Do you have any idea, like, if you had a guess, maybe, like, what it is?
No, I don't know what it is.
Okay, thank you.
I would say it's like a place where a place that focuses on architecture.
I guess I would have to say it's like, I don't know, buildings that are built in a way that's not the best. I don't really know.
So, what is hostile architecture? Recently, the desire to exclude unwanted people and unwanted behavior led to the establishment of what is called hostile architecture. And hostile architecture comes in many different names, such as defensive architecture, disciplinary architecture, excluding architecture, and as well as evil architecture. The names sounding more and more like it is the devil's work. And one prime example of hostile architecture are benches whose design prevents people from lying down on them completely. And they were also given unpleasant nicknames, such as anti-hobo benches or bum-proof benches. And these terms were coined by Carl Define de Lichit in his research paper called The Critical Discussion of the Seemingly Offensive Art of Keeping People Away. So why are these benches considered hostile architecture? One big reason was that they are very uncomfortable to rest on and unsuitable for permanent rest. And sometimes they have armrests on them. They have slopey seats as well as made out of slippery materials such as stainless steel. And all of these modifications makes it hard for people to sit on them. However, not all defensive measures in hostile architecture are this provocative, such as window spikes. And window spikes are usually installed in windows. They are typically used to turn away unwanted presence nearby, be it animals or the people you hate. The defensive measures in hostile architecture varies in its intensity, but still, hostile architecture causes so many controversies, with some people arguing that it is not the right or decent way to treat a part of your community.
There is a reason why defensive design is characterized as hostile. Take the example of the leaning bar. Disability advocates have a problem with that appearing in the MTA. One advocate pointed out that people who travel who have disabilities or just get tired sometimes need a bench to sit on and not a wall to lean against. And while no one likes an uncomfortable bench, these additions mean something more for people who are experiencing homelessness. The United States is currently experiencing a decline in the overall homeless population. But in New York City, the number of homeless people is growing. About 1,800 people were found to have been sleeping in the subway. That's because emergency shelter isn't always a viable option. There are several examples of hostile architecture that target people who are homeless. These designs imply that public space is not where homeless people should be. As it goes, city planners have a dilemma. How do they design inclusive cities? As for the Enhanced Subway Initiative, the MTA's mock designs highlight new USB ports and electronic signage in stations. But you won't find any press materials highlighting this uncomfortable bench. Excuse me, the leaning bar. That's because it makes for an uncomfortable discussion about who we design public space for and who gets left out.
I work for a company called Orion Ironworks. We are located in Oxon Hill, Maryland, near Washington, D.C. We fabricate and install steel structures, steel stairs, steel railings, steel barrier, platforms, grading platforms, ladders, and the miscellaneous metal items for the government and the private sector. I'm in the charge of decision making on my company and also my partner.
Who orders your company to install steel barriers and other examples of hostile architecture onto public places?
That will be the metro and then also some private contractors who does make us to fabricate and install hostile architectural materials, such as we made one on the Washington DC near the bank.
The steel barrier.
The steel barrier, that's correct. Yeah, the steel barrier on the Washington DC right in front of the bank was built in the shaft, and that has some pointed arrow, so if some people sit on it and they're gonna get hurt. And the reason they put that up so nobody can sit on it.
And your company built that, right?
Yes, unfortunately my company did that.
And so do you have any regrets about
Yeah,
that?
now I have regrets of it, so in the future I'll bring that up to my client. But I cannot really refuse it because I have to follow my client.
Architecture can be a powerful tool. It can offer its users the possibility to be confronted with other people and to create shared memories. It can offer the opportunity for people to identify with these spaces because they can connect their memories and stories to a physical space. But what does it mean if you cannot recognize yourself in what you see around you? If the stories on display cannot be accessed by you, are forgotten or excluded because, for example, you cannot afford it or you lack the so-called appropriate cultural background, then you're not at home, a stranger in the city you live in. You're not able to contribute, not involved, not responsible. People identify themselves with public buildings and public spaces, landmarks of their lives in the city, connecting them to their personal story, their history. Bridges, museums, libraries, and squares. These are all chapters and verses of lives, connected to the people that are using them. What if we could create cities in which all its citizens could recognize themselves? Cities in which everyone gets to write a verse.
Are you more aware of hostile architecture?
Yes, I'm right now. I'm more aware of hostile architecture now than I was before.
And what will you do for the future?
Well, when I see on the drawings that was supplied by my customer, I'm gonna try to tell them, hey, this item is gonna make some people hurt. They are hostile architectural and not to build it.